My name is Tamika Olson. I'm currently a graduate student at Northwest Christian University and completed some of my undergrad studies at NCU as well. I am also a substitute teacher in the Sutherland School District currently. My capstone project is about creating a positive classroom community, and I hope you enjoy this presentation. Some of you may be wondering why I chose bullying as my capstone research project. I believe that we can take a proactive approach to that and create positive classroom environments for students. I believe that bullying is a hot topic across our nation in the school setting today. Students are constantly faced with bullying issues. My three main reasons for wanting to research this topic are, the first one is that not only am I a teacher, but I'm a mother of two young boys, a 6th grader and a 3rd grader. And I want to be able to help them have positive ways to stand up for themselves and stand up for others and create a positive atmosphere where less actions of bullying will hopefully occur. My second reason for wanting to focus on bullying is that I think we could create a tipping point and move away from so much talk about bullying and actions about bullying towards being overly kind with one another and showing acts of kindness and love to students and to other adults, and that would create the tipping point towards kindness and away from bullying. My third reason is that I'm sad to report that students across the nation are committing suicide in high numbers. This touches my heart in more ways than I can express throughout this project. However, I feel that young children should not feel so low and bad about themselves that they feel that suicide is the only answer. We have to create a positive classroom environment for students. Throughout my literature review, the three main trends that I noticed were, first, students want to be accepted by others. And overall, students want to be good, and they need guidelines and rules and to know the expectations that are provided by the adults. And then it's important to remember that students are more than just numbers and data on a piece of paper. And I often feel that educators forget that at times, and we need to be mindful of it and remember. The second trend I noticed was being proactive with bullying will make the biggest impact. Focusing on positive ways to communicate with each other and finding solutions that are win-win for both students or the entire group involved is going to make the biggest impact. And the third trend that I noticed was that unsupervised areas are the places where actions of bullying occur more often than well-supervised areas. So it's important for adults to be visible to students. And I'm not saying we're going to stop bullying altogether. However, if we're creating positive environments that are filled with kindness and loving acts, then students will be less likely to bully. Research questions. What did I want to find out? You might be asking yourself. My first question was, in what ways will students' use of building a community environment in their classroom affect their encounters with actions of bullying? And then my secondary research question was, in what ways can I use my findings to help increase a positive community environment within the classroom? I was very excited to research this project and find out the results and creating a positive environment within the classroom. As I stated in a previous slide, my action research will focus on creating a positive community in the classroom environment with the hope of decreasing the negative actions, such as bullying, that children encounter. The purpose of the study is to create a positive community classroom environment through learning to accept each individual student for who they are as a whole child, inside and outside of the classroom. The study lasted for about 3 or 4 weeks. The students discussed and participated in creating a positive community environment by acknowledging each other's actions that reflected actions of positive interactions with each other. The students shared their ideas and interests that they had outside of school. They had discussions of areas that they were concerned with, that they're seeing at school, and community concerns that they had with each other, and maybe students outside their own classroom as well. Throughout the study, I collected various forms of data to determine whether the intervention of creating a positive classroom environment was successful. Some of the items I collected were surveys, questionnaires, interviews, behavior information from Swiss forms, and photographs of students' interests. When I stated that it's important for educators to remember that students are more than just numbers and data on a piece of paper, I really tried to keep that at the forefront of my mind throughout the study. I kept thinking about making a connection with each child, even though I was only there for a short amount of time. And if students feel safe and secure and accepted by their teacher or other adults in the building, they'll be able to build relationships within their classroom, with their teacher and with their peers, and even with students that aren't their friends, but they need to learn how to get along with them. And this will allow students to achieve growth in academics and in their social skills as well. One of my favorite quotes that I also continually review is one by Albert Einstein. It says, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid." And if students are always being judged by their peers and teachers, and they're not being fully accepted for who they are, academically and socially, then they go around feeling sad and depressed and, well, as Albert Einstein said, stupid. And my goal is to make a positive impact in the life of a child, and hopefully that this study accomplished that. Before I get right to my hypothesis, I would like to give a brief report on the literature review paper that I did create for this project. My paper discussed the effects that bullying and harassment had on both the victim and the bully. I believe that students need to be held accountable for their actions, whether they are the victims or the instigator. First, in order for bullying to occur, there must be an imbalance in power between the students. The next step is to stop bullying. It involves educators teaching students how to prevent situations which promote this sense of power struggles. Not only has bullying affected many students' ability to receive a quality education, but in severe cases, young lives have been lost due to the pressures and problems caused by bullying. Suicide rates among students affected by bullying at the primary and secondary level are now making news headlines across the United States. In order to address this epidemic, implementation of preventative bullying policies and procedures must be incorporated by students, parents, teaching staff, and school administrators. Integrating programs such as positive behavior systems to reduce the incidences of bullying and the actions caused by its harmful effects will be part of a solution. According to the students' constitutional rights, students are entitled to receive an education in a learning environment that is both safe and secure. Bullying can no longer be tolerated by victims, bystanders, or adults. Encouraging students to have positive attitudes and proactive behaviors remain a key element in creating an environment for all students to be able to effectively learn and to feel accepted. And I believe that what a bully desires most is to feel respect and acceptance for themselves. With that said, my hypothesis is that by creating a positive classroom environment, we can make an impact on the encounters that students have with bullying. Throughout my action research study, there were 4 main methods that I implemented. The first was the Character Rocks activity. This included a bulletin board that had the words perseverance, loyalty, respect, honesty, leadership, integrity, caring, cooperation, fairness, citizenship, courtesy, and responsibility displayed on it. There were also several rocks listed with the rocks with these words listed on them. The students would see each other creating actions that addressed any of these words, so loyalty or respect or honesty. And they would choose a rock, so they would know how to spell the word. And then there's these little character rocks cards. They're like business cards. And they would fill out the rock with the card with the student's name on it and what they saw the other person do and which character word the student was shown. And this was great because the students were able to learn new character education words that they weren't previously exposed to. Some of them didn't really know what the words meant, and we talked about them several times so they understood them. And then they were going around creating positive interactions with each other and stating kind things to each other. And they were told that they had to fill it out during an appropriate time, so we made sure that was clear. And it wasn't a disruption to the class. And then when I would come in and do my action research, we would share the cards, and then the students would get to keep those cards and take them home. And I actually had some parents say that their child brought them home and they were really excited to do that. So that was a really good activity. The second one was a community concerns box. So this was a little box that they each drew a picture of themselves on a little yellow post-it, and we decorated it with those. And they were able to fill out a little form that said issues that they were concerned with. And we really talked about the difference between tattling and bullying and knowing how to tell the difference. If someone was really hurt or if it was a small problem that they could solve on their own. And they would write these issues down, and then we would talk about them, and it led to some pretty good conversations with the students. The third method was one of my favorites. It was the mysterious pictures about me. So the students thought they knew each other pretty well, but there was only 2 or 1. It was 8% of the class. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 students that got every picture right. So the students had to go home and take a picture of something that represented them, whether it was a hobby or tradition or just an interest that they didn't think other people knew that they had. And then they brought them to school and gave them to me, and they were in envelopes and secured, and they wrote why they chose that picture. And then I put them on poster boards, and they all had a sheet, and they had to guess who belonged to each picture. And it was great. They learned a lot about each other and their interests outside of school. So that was wonderful. And then the fourth method was class meetings. And during these class meetings, we would all sit on the floor, crisscross applesauce, and have discussions about bullying and tattling and how they feel and what they could do in situations like that. And we had role playing, and the students really appreciated that, and they all wanted to turn to be able to show how they would handle situations of bullying, how they would stand up to bullying, or how they would help someone else. So I feel that these methods were very valuable for the students, and after the fact their teachers had mentioned briefly that the students were still talking about them. So it was a success overall. With this action research study being implemented in a short period of time, the results seem to be less dramatic than if the study would have been conducted over a longer period of time. So keep that in mind for the results. The first part of the data that I used was the Swiss forms, and the information that was provided to me showed that prior to the intervention there were 5 Swiss forms filled out. Swiss forms are, as most of you know, forms that are filled out to track student behavior. Okay. So the first ones had, prior to the intervention, there was 5 for harassment and teasing, 1 for physical aggression, and 2 for defiance. And after the intervention, the harassment and teasing went down to 3, the physical aggression had went down to 1, and defiance had went from 2 to 1. The other part of the data that I used was student surveys. And the students filled out a survey about where they felt bullying occurred the most. And the number 1 place was a playground. 10 of the students out of 25 said that they felt bullying had occurred on the playground, or they'd been bullied or witnessed bullied there. 7 out of 25 said the hallway, and then 6 out of 25 said in the cafeteria. And I think that's just showing that those areas, they're hard to supervise, and there's less adults in those areas during that time. As I mentioned before, the unsupervised areas are the ones where bullying occurs more often than areas that are supervised more closely. And those numbers decreased slightly, not by a whole bunch, in the surveys with the students. The playground went from 10 to 8, and the hallway went from 7 to 5 students feeling they were still being bullied, and the cafeteria went from 6 to 4. And students stated that they felt more comfortable standing up for themselves after the intervention with situations that involved bullying, and they were more likely to handle small situations with less teacher interactions, such as tattling. And the teachers also noted that while tattling was still occurring, they felt students tried more often to solve small problems on their own. Well, it's hard to determine exactly if the results are due to my action research or children just naturally maturing, or a combination of both. To further support the findings, the student and teacher interviews were conducted, and interviews with the teachers found that they were noticing a slight increase in students noticing positive actions from one another, which really made me pretty excited about it, because I really would like to get the students where they're noticing positive acts with each other, and that becomes sticky and contagious action, whether instead of bullying and harassment. So I was excited about that. And interviews with students also showed that students were more comfortable with how to handle tattling versus bullying and what to do, and they felt like they were more aware of how to stand up for themselves or others if they needed to. And also, with the mysterious pictures about me, only 8% of the students were able to correctly identify all the pictures. And the students were surprised about how little they knew about each other. And this is a small rural school, small rural community. And the students felt like they knew each other pretty well before we did the picture survey. So it was pretty interesting to find out that they knew much less about each other than they thought they did. And this entire, I did a classroom and there's 25 students in there, and that entire third grade there's about 95 students. So it was interesting to see their findings as well. My future recommendations or wishes for the future are that educators need to be talking about meeting the needs of the whole child and not just the academic needs. Students are more complex than the numbers and the data on the pieces of paper and the tests and the assessments that we're given. I would encourage the character rocks activities that I did with the rocks, and the business cards, and the sharing of kindness and caring and responsibility and all those good quality character education traits that we hope that children have. Go school-wide. Be bucket fillers, as I like to think of it. And I think it needs to be adults as well. Like, adults can tell kids what they think they're doing right. I did, and the kids really liked it when I did it, or when their homeroom teacher told them. And that the kids can do it for the adults as well. It reminds the adults that they need to be positive also. Being sticky and contagious in a positive way can impact students quickly. We're all fighting some type of battle, and I think it's important to remember that. In some situations that I know of that impact students' lives, of those battles that I was talking about, some of the students, these are just some of the third grade students that I know. They're living with their great-grandparents. Their parents are in a divorce. Parents are working away from home. A parent has cancer. they're moving, and some of them are homeless, and those are just a few that I can think of off the top of my head. So I think it's important to be believing in kindness and finding the good in students every day and having that positive impact. The other recommendation is that I would encourage everybody to do the mysterious pictures about me, because in this small little classroom where I can vouch that these students think they know each other pretty well, they're pretty surprised at some of the things that their friends enjoyed doing that they had no idea that they liked to do. Students will be able to understand more about each other's interests outside of the classrooms with this picture activity. It was done at the beginning of the school year, and maybe a couple times throughout the year. It's just kind of a fun way to do it, and it's really not that expensive. And I think it's important for students to understand interests of others that are outside their friends, because the bullying and the situations that create havoc aren't with their friends. They need to understand that the people that annoy them and irritate them and bug them and just make them crazy in general have things and qualities about them that they can relate to, and if they could relate to each other, I think there'd be less actions of bullying. Not stating that all students will be friends with everyone, but I found that when students could relate to students they didn't understand, or even like for that matter, that I already stated, there were areas of the disagreements and understanding that the students were more likely to be positive instead of negative or hurtful. My other recommendation would be just to increase that positive community atmosphere, not just in the classroom, but school-wide. A quote I have from an author, Walk, it's on page 16 of his book. It says, "Showing students that you value their interests, cultures, and life experiences help to foster healthy relationships. There are many ways in which teachers can get to know their students." And I think these areas are ways that we can get to know our students. To further build on positive community environments, fostering the growth of positive relationships within the classroom will encourage students to feel accepted and respected for who they are as individuals, and allow them to develop into more successful learners. This also can be done by creating a safe environment for students in the classroom, and when those barriers of indifference and thoughtlessness break down, then respect and acceptance begins to be nurtured. I'd like to go back to my questions that I focused this research project on. My first one was, in what ways would students' use of building a community environment in their classroom affect their encounters with actions of bullying? And I found that when students were surrounded by kindness and people who find the good within each of them, that tipping points begin to occur, and the students start to notice the good and the kindness within each other, and this lessens the encounters of bullying. Did I stop bullying altogether? Nope, and I'm okay with that. If I make a positive impact on that one student, you know, the John, or the Joey, or the Jeffrey, whatever their name is, then I'm on the right path for helping students feel better about themselves. Bullies want to be accepted. They want friends. They want to be loved. And the students, the ones that are really hard to love, those are the ones who really need it the most. And my secondary question, in what ways can I use my findings to help increase a positive community environment within my classroom? Students will spread actions of kindness and good to each other. It might be in baby steps, but it'll happen. I even saw it happening in my short amount of time with these students. Making a positive community in one classroom at a time will impact an entire school and even a district over time. My unexpected outcomes. The results. I'll have to admit, I felt a little disappointed that the results weren't more dramatic. However, I really do understand that with a longer implementation time, the results would have had more of an impact, and the data will continue to show a positive intervention was occurring And so with the short amount of time I was there, that there was even a slight change, I'm okay with that, and that shows me that we're doing something right. And so if this just continued on, there'd be even more of a positive change within the community environment in the classrooms. My acknowledgments go to East Primary. I really appreciate the students and the staff at that school. This is where I completed my action research project. And I'd really like to acknowledge Mrs. Sorensen and her third graders who were the participants of this action research project with me. They're an amazing group of little friends, and they have shown me that I have a lot to learn from everyone I come in contact with, even third graders. I learned that by increasing the acts of kindness, caring, and love, this will leave a lasting impact on student relationships with peers, teachers, and other adults that they encounter throughout their day and hopefully their lifetime. It's worth the time to create positive relationships with students. And I believe in making a difference in the lives of children, so I believe in bringing a positive, sticky, contagious atmosphere to the classroom.